I'm Bob Trask. This is our weekly reset. This is where we'll come together each week, to make sure that the ensuing week is better than the last one. If we do that for a whole year, that'll be 52 steps upward, upward, upward into consciousness, enlightenment, and personal joy. I've got a great subject for us today, so stick with me. Right now, let's just do a brief meditation. If you'll find yourself comfortable and just sink into your chair wherever you are and feel the breath coming in through your nose. That is the breath of the universe. You're breathing in grace. You're breathing in the oxygen that the trees and the meadows and the seagrasses are breathing out for you, for me. And as we breathe out, we're breathing out the carbon dioxide, which is the grace they need for life. So they're inhaling and exhaling, and we're inhaling and exhaling. And in that way, we're joining and becoming one. One with the universe. And each breath that goes into you is a blessing, a healing, flowing into each one of the 100 trillion cells of your body, making them smile, making them be well. You are a good and worthy person. You deserve joy in every day of your life. As you continue to breathe in through your nose, find yourself sinking deeper and deeper into that sea of grace. So beautiful. You are being surrounded right now by a presence. And that presence is love, is healing. That presence is the presence of the creative mind of all universes in all times. And it's focused on you right now. Because you are its special child. Because you are its incarnation. You are, in fact, the presence of the universe. All of it is in you as you. And your potential in this lifetime is boundless. Boundless. Deep in this sea of grace, you find yourself in deep peace. An assuredness that you are perfect exactly as you are. that if you dare to dream of the unimaginable, if you dare to dream, and if you dare to hold that dream as dear to your heart, it will come true. It can't help it. It can't help it because the whole power of the universe is in you. Every great creator from the beginning of time has had an unimaginable dream. And because he or she held it and refused to give up, it came true. And they changed our world. They changed our human family for the better. So when you come back to us, please bring this self with you, this peace, this joy. Thank you. I'm so glad you're with me today. I'm so glad that we're here together in this weekly reset. And today I've got a subject that I just absolutely love, and it's about genius. Would you want to be a genius? I mean, maybe you are a genius and you know it, but maybe you don't know it. And maybe you wonder if you are a genius. And if you were a genius, what would happen that would change your life? Would your self image improve? Would you feel better about yourself? Would you feel more confident if you were to take a test and find out that you were a genius? Well, today you're going to get that test. Today you're going to find out whether you're a genius. So hang on, fasten your seatbelt. Would other people treat you differently if they knew that you were a genius? How would they know? How would they know if you were a genius? Would you go around with your IQ test pasted on your back so they could see that? How would they know if you were a genius? Would it possibly be because you would express yourself differently and that you would experience life differently? Is that how they'd know you were a genius? Just imagine for a moment that there were no limits to your potential. Just imagine that for a moment. I don't want you to go there. Just imagine it for a minute. There's no limit to your potential. You can do anything, anything you can dream of. I know that sounds a little far out there, but just stay with me for a minute. What would that be like? How would you live that life? Knowing that it would be like being a multi-billionaire, but rather than just having stacks of green paper, what you'd have is the ability to create anything you could dream of. What if that were true? But what if the only barrier would be for you to get your imagination to become the boss of your life? That your imagination would say, you can do this, imagine it, now create it. And it would be created. Imagine that would happen. The creator, what people call God, God is just a word. It's just a three-letter word. Doesn't mean a damn thing. But the creator, the creative presence, the great intelligent energy of this universe, of all universes and all time, is doing exactly that. It's imagining a tree, and a tree is there. It's an imagining a tree growing on a rocky bluff so high in the mountains that there's not really enough of what trees need for essential life. And yet that little tree hangs onto a cliff. Boy, I've seen them. Hangs onto a cliff with almost no dirt and grows straight up, reaching for the light, always throughout its entire life, reaching for the light. That's what trees do. We could learn something from trees, reaching for the light. The creative power, the creative energy, the creative intelligence is not only creating the tree, it is the tree. It is in the tree as the tree. And it is in you as you. That creative intelligence, that same great mystery, that great mind is in you as you. And every day that you doubt that, you're falling out of grace, out of the ability to be the creator. So you can't afford to doubt that. And how do you get past those doubts? By owning every single win, by creating something, then owning it. Not saying, oh, I don't, that just happened, or no, owning it. And then you go back to being a child. Because when you were a little kid, you were a genius. Wow, you could just lived in your imagination. You lived in your imagination right up until you were 6 years old. And then what happened? I mean, you were playing in the yard, you were playing with dolls or or baseball or cards or what, and you were just in love with life. And then at 6 years old, what happened is we institutionalized you. You got institutionalized. And when you were institutionalized, then the genius stopped because you had to fold into a mold of a good student that you were judged from then on by your grades. Buckminster Fuller, who's just an amazing architect, he designed the geodesic dome. He did so many wonderful things, and he was absolutely a genius. And he said, every child is a genius until 6 years old. Until 6 years old. So then we institutionalize them, and our imaginations, which have been our teachers, our imaginations were our teachers up until then they stopped being our teachers, and we're told we must let go of those wonderful days of freedom of thought, freedom to drift in our imagination. We need to adhere to strict academic rules and guidelines that will bring us into intelligence and wisdom. Come on. Thomas Huxley was a great scientist, but he had very, very little formal education. He was virtually self-taught. And yet he became perhaps the finest comparative anatomist in the later 19th century. He worked on invertebrates, clarifying relationships between groups previously little understood. And then later he worked on vertebrates, especially on the relationships between apes and humans. He was an amazing, amazing man, and he changed the world for us. And regarding genius, he said, get this now, the secret of genius is to carry the spirit of childhood into maturity. And here's why I think it's a good idea to assess your brain power, to take a look at that today, because we need to carry the spirits of our childhood into our present adult minds, don't we? Let's face it, you may have been missing something. You may have been missing something because you don't think like other people. Because in tests and in schools in academia and in society around you. People are thinking a certain way, they're doing a certain thing, they're going a certain direction, and it doesn't make sense to you. Or you try to fit in. You try to do the same things that the rest of them are doing, but you always feel a little out of bounds, like a third wheel. I was in kindergarten when I learned that math was something that was above me, that I wouldn't be able to get math. Teacher passed out pieces of paper, and then up on the board she wrote the numbers 1 to 20, and then when she got through writing the numbers 1 to 20, she said, I want you to continue writing these to 100. So I came up to 20, everything was fine. Then I wrote 21, 21, 201. And I was going on with that up into my 30s. And she came by my desk and picked up my paper and said, no, 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 no. Now this is what happens when you don't pay attention. And for some people, this just doesn't work for them, these numbers. And she showed the class my thing, and they all sort of snickered. And then after that, throughout school, every year I got D's and F's in math. When I was in the 9th grade, I was failing yet another math class, and the school counselor gave me an IQ test to see what she could possibly do with me. And I saw her the next day in the hall, and she buttonholed me and she said, what are you doing with your IQ? What are you doing? What's going on with you? I said, I just can't get math. I just don't get math. So she put me in a different class, and I thought it was a special help class, but it was a class where only thinkers were there. We just thought. And we thought together, and we designed bridges, and we designed highways, and we designed fulcrums and all kinds of different things. And we did that just by thinking. And later I won at a science fair for designing and building instruments for measuring weather. I tried learning to read music, but it was a mystery I just couldn't fathom. You know, it's supposed to be four quarter notes to a bar, that dun, 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 and in a half note would be two of those together, dun, dun. I looked at that and I thought, it's so easy. It's too easy. There wouldn't be teaching a class on this. They wouldn't be teaching a class on this because you just say it and you don't have to teach it. There's nothing to it. So obviously I'm not getting it. So I just feared I couldn't read music. I dropped out of school after the 10th grade, and subsequently I saw myself as uneducated and below the standards of society. I always wished I'd have gone to college so I could have gotten an education. I didn't understand then that education and schooling are not necessarily the same thing. We all know people who have 18 or 20 years of schooling and who can't think critically. I think I wish I'd known the deep thinker and genius Nassim Taleb, who's a math genius, and the author of some incredible books, including The Black Swan. Taleb said, the imagination of the genius vastly surpasses his intellect. Listen to that. The imagination of the genius vastly surpasses his intellect. The intellect of the academic vastly surpasses his imagination. So you want to be an academic or you want to be a genius? When I was 27, a friend of mine who was a Mensa member took me to a test and had me take an IQ test. And when I got the results of that IQ test back, I was stunned. I was just blown away. I was stunned. And I suddenly understood why I didn't see reality the same as everyone else. I understood that. Now it's not necessary for you to go take an IQ test. You're already a genius. In all of history, there'll never be another you. Only you can see life as you can. Only you can create what you can create. If you can just learn to trust your intuition and your instinct and your imagination, you can begin to grow your mind, your excellent mind, not the other way. Not your mind will grow your imagination. Your imagination will grow your mind. Your genius may express itself in art, in math, in music, in writing or speaking or teaching or anything you can imagine. Business administration. But you have to follow your imagination and you have to follow your bliss. Here are a few signs that you might be a genius, even if you don't think so. Any one of these might be meaningful or not meaningful, but let's see how many of them there are that relate to you, and then you can congratulate yourself on being you. Number one, and this is the most endearing and it's the most important one element in becoming successful in life, whether you're a genius or not. The most important is that you have endless curiosity. If you haven't been curious, you need to stoke your curiosity. You need to be asking questions about everything. You think about life and you ponder what existence really is. The word existence, what is that? Existence. I mean, yeah, you can just toss it around, but what does it really mean? You see unrealized dimensions, realities, processes going on around you that you can't speak of because there are no words for them. And you realize the richness of things that seem ordinary to others. That comes from curiosity. And you have a deep appreciation for music and melody and colors and art. Claude Monet, who was one of the great artists, one great impressionist artists of all times, Claude Monet said, "Color is my day-long obsession, my joy and my torment." Like Claude Monet, you can see nature as alive and recognize it as a vital part of all reality. For example, are you spellbound by the reflection of moon on dark water? Would that just hold you spellbound? And you would not be able to say, oh, well, this is what that's about. No, because you can't explain it. You just look at it and you feel deeply moved inside. Here's another one. Your imagination often solves problems that seem unsolvable. You use your brain and it doesn't seem to work. But when you go into your imagination, you say, oh, here are some options. And then you solve the problem. Another thing, you have a high level of verbal intelligence. You like words. Words fascinate you. And you see depth in the meaning of simple words like the word often. Often we think it just describes something that goes on periodically. But when you think about it, it describes not only the repetition of something in time, but also in the depth of space. Dun, 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 dun. Another one, you have an inner sense of, of reality, and you have intense inner conversations going on inside of you. Yeah, you do, don't you? And some may be dark and disturbing, and others may be uplifting, but you know that goes on. You have these inner dialogues, these inner conversations. And did you know that geniuses frequently talk to themselves? They talk to themselves out loud. And, you know, people used to think that that was a sign of mental instability, but now we know that speaking to yourself out loud enables your brain to sort things out and to explore new ideas. Talking to yourself means that you're self-reliant. Albert Einstein talked to himself. Because see, when you talk to yourself, you hear that. You hear that. And then you begin to mold that thinking process, because once if it's just going on in your brain silently, that's just rolling around in there. But once you put words to it, then you can edit it. You can look at it and say, well, that's not, I mean, your brain is hard at work then to make that work. Here's another one. You have a difficult time putting up with mediocrity or apathy. Oh my God. Do not bore me. Hit me if you want to, but don't bore me. Step on my toe, but don't bore. That's the worst thing in the world. You can't put up with mediocrity or apathy. You just can't. And if you have a life partner that's mediocre or apathetic, oh my God, you got to wake them up. You got to get them awake. You got to light their foot on fire or something. Here's another one. You like to take naps. If you take naps, most most geniuses are adept at taking 20-minute power naps sometime during the day. Great big companies, big companies that have their acts together have cots where people can go lay down and sleep for a little while. That's where the creative genius comes in. And you're funny. That's another one. You're funny. Comedians consistently score higher on IQ tests. Did you know that? And then here's the last one, and it's the one I love because this is me. You are extremely messy. That's me. That's me. A study found that students in messy rooms generated the same number of ideas as the kids in clean rooms. The same number of ideas. But they found that those ideas that came from the kids in messy rooms were far more interesting, more innovative, and more creative. Albert Einstein said, if a cluttered desk is the sign of a cluttered mind, then what is an empty desk a sign of? Are you a genius? Are you insatiably curious? Do you know things that can't be understood? Do you love music, melodies, colors, art? Do you see living nature as an extension of yourself? Are you able to do abstract thinking to solve problems? Do you have conversations with yourself? Do you find mediocrity and apathy maddening? You see that intellectual intelligence is not true genius? Are you funny? Do you swear a lot? Because geniuses swear a lot. And are you your tendency to be messy? You know, Stephen Hawking, Albert Einstein, and Charles Darwin were all geniuses, no question about that. But see, you can pigeonhole them into what they did, science. But they were in the same absolute ballpark as Mozart, Beethoven, and Picasso. Because all of them were doing something I'm asking you to start doing today. They trusted their imaginations. They created something that had never been before, and in so doing it, they changed the world. And they were not more geniuses than you. Perhaps they were freer, felt freer to still be little children because they could create, and creation was everything to them. And that's genius. And finally, today, here's some wisdom from Pearl Buck, who's one of my very favorite authors. She said, the truly creative mind in any field is no more than this: a human creature born abnormally, inhumanly sensitive. To him, a touch is a blow, a sound is a noise, a misfortune is a tragedy, a joy is an ecstasy, a friend is a lover is a god, and failure is death. Add to this cruelly delicate organism the overpowering necessity to create, so that without creating of music or poetry or books or building of something of meaning, his very breath is cut off from him. He must create. He must pour out creation. By some strange, unknown inward urgency, he's not really alive unless he's creating. You're a creator and you're a genius. You are a genius because you're the only one that's ever lived that sees what you see, hears what you hear, smells what you smell, touches what you touch, and creates what you create. Thank you. If today's message has been meaningful to you, would you please go to my website, bobtrask.com, and make a donation? Boy, I sure would appreciate it. And if you're going to stick around for a little while, we're going to have a little conversation. But if you need to leave, oh, I understand. Then you need to go. But please know that I'm here every week with a weekly reset. So come back and bring friends.